Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Yes, you can. Good. Excellent. That's always a good start. Welcome to the Seminar Theatre for the first session today. And the first session is about the housing market. Now, the housing market and the moving market, of course, are inextricably linked. And the housing market has been going through a few ups and downs of late, with the mini budget gave us all a bit to think about. The letting market, of course, is changing as well, very quickly in line with the purchasing market too. And it'd be kind of interesting to find out when all of this lot is going to return to normal, and if it does return to normal, what normal might actually look like. And we have today to talk to you two people. We've got two speakers today who are going to explain a little bit about that. They claim their company claims to have the largest and most accurate source of home mover data in the business. And so if anybody should know what they're talking about, then my goodness, they should. So from 20CI, please welcome, first up to the stage, Marlon Waters. Marlon.
Testing. Can everyone hear me? How are you all? Good? Good. So, my name is Marlon, account manager here at 20CI. My glamorous assistant, Matthew, he'll be taking you through the sales market. It should be a sort of half an hour. We'll take any questions at the end or stop us in between. We'll be happy to answer any questions along the way. So I'll tell you who we are. Matthew will take you through the sales market. I'll take you through the rental side, and then we'll give you some sort of predictions at the end as to kind of where we see the property market going in next year. So who are we? So it's not a claim, it's a fact. We are the largest and most accurate source of home mover data in the UK. We do cover the whole of market coverage, and we also work with a lot of the top removers and storers that some of them you'll meet here today. We also work with retail, telecoms, and some financial services as well. So we share our data with the likes of some of the people you see on the next screen. These are some examples of the data that we use. A lot of it is our own in-house data, and some of it is, of course, extracted from other sources like Rightmove, Zoopla, and so on. So we have, as I said, cover a whole of market. It's around 99.6% of the market that we cover. So the 4% or 0.4% is more likely to be the kind of private sales that you're going to get that are off market. At the end, you've got off-market properties, so those that are likely to come onto the market. We also have access to data that's similar to that as well. So these are some of the sort of players, you can say, in the financial and government industries that we share our information with. So the likelihood is if you get an update from 10 Downing Street with regards to the housing market, it's come from our data sources, and also kind of journalists and kind of radio, BBC that we've used in the past, and interviews and whatnot that we've had exposure to our data. Wrong way. So, Matthew will take you through the sales market, I'll jump back on and I'll take you through the rental market.
Hello everybody, good morning. As Marlon said, my name's Matthew, and I'll just be running through the residential sales market for us, and let's see what that starts looking like. So, looking at both supply and demand, you can see on the chart just on the right hand side, get my left and right correct, supply and demand has pretty much remained the same against each other, although it's starting to have a slight drop off since March 2022 as well for us. One of the influences around supply and demand is one of the government the fiscal reports, as we've all recently had, and that put a huge effect on obviously mortgage rates and things like that as well. That's just happened. With supply of new properties also for sale turning to a slight norm as they were back in 2022. I think we've all had a big bumper since I think the pandemic happened. Then going on to the next page, If we start looking at the triggers by price bands for October specifically 2022, we can see that new instructions have pretty much remained the same as what they were back in that normal year of 2019. And much more likely to occur of those instructions at the higher price properties as well. And I think that's going to be more to do with the price increases that we've seen over the last 2-3 years, bringing those lower end properties into the top market, which is what we like to see. And then coming down to sale agreed properties, there has been a reduction of 17.5% since 2019. But the majority of that percentage does fall into the lower end of the property market, £200,000 and below. So more like your one-bed properties. Fall-throughs, as with any market that goes up with more properties going onto the market, you're going to have a higher rate of fall-throughs going on, naturally of course, and that's actually increased up to 38% since 2019, which is a little bit of a higher number than what we'd like, but again, that is more up towards in the lower end properties as well. Price reductions, not much changes in regards to the price reductions. That's pretty much stayed the same as 2019. But if there were any price reductions, it's more likely to happen in your top tier properties of £1 million plus. Then if we go on to the next slide and we actually look at triggers by regions, and again specifically focusing in October of this year, there has been increases in instructions within London, outer London and Wales. However, slight reductions pretty much everywhere else in the UK, Northern Ireland, Scotland as well. Fall-throughs, they've increased as well in every region since 2019. With the worst hit areas within London, to be fair. And then relative volumes of price reductions falling most within the northeast, northwest, with Scotland as well. And again, the worst hit areas being in London for the price reductions. Asking prices, that's what we like, that's what it comes down to, that's the juicy part. Actual sold prices, so one of the things we want to say is just the prices, the indications come from the listing prices and not the sold prices when we look at our data. So with the asking price rises, there has been an increase in September. However, that was a bounce back from July and August. However, October and November has had a slight reduction again, coming back down. However, with these price reductions coming out, I wouldn't take it too seriously, because with the massive increases that we've gained since 2019, it's going to be a marginal decrease. I mean, majority of the UK seen an increase of around, I think, just shy of 30%. It should be on there actually. Yeah, 29% since 2019. So even if we're looking at an 8 to 10% drop next year, or even a 15% drop next year, we're still looking up from the previous years from the price increases. Now, if we look at taking the time to sell a property, for your sales and removers, that's the long part that's sticking out for you. And but the average time to sell a property has fallen massively over the last couple of years. So, looking at the data there, you can see sort of right at the beginning of 2019, days to sell was around 55. Then peaking all the way up to over 70 days, and then it's dropped down quite massively since, and it's plateaued quite evenly, taking around sort of 23-24 days to sell a property and get that sold subject to contract. Moving on to sales and times to exchange, that's where the process takes a little bit longer in the chains, unfortunately. And we've actually seen an increase of time to exchange quite dramatically, going up to October 22. Average time to exchange on a property is 135 days, so 4.5 months, which is quite a rise since 2019. Why is it taking so much time to exchange? It's pretty much going to be the lack of supply. It takes a chain to form, being a little bit longer, and obviously a lag of surveys and things like that taking place as well from solicitors. I'm going to hand you back over to Marlon, who's going to give you an insight into the residential lettings market.
Great, no worries. So, to be fair, the kind of what you're about to see is very similar to kind of what you're seeing in the sale market. To be honest, a lot of what we're seeing is a lot of reductions as opposed to increases. Unfortunately, can everyone hear me? So the overall volume of available letting stocks has been falling since March last year. As you can see at the start of the graph there to the end, the kind of dip is quite significant. So in October 2022, so we're basing it off of kind of last month through to our last normal year of 2019. It's around about just under 130,000 decrease kind of since the last 3 years, which is quite a big deal in terms of the rentals market. The sales side is a little bit different. The increasing regulation in the private rental sector has made it a case where a lot of landlords now are divesting because it's kind of hard to make a choice to kind of stay in the rental market and keep the property kind of going. So supply and demand, you can see that there's the symmetry between the two lines is quite similar, but if you look towards the end, you'll see that the supply and demand kind of gap is kind of shortening. So essentially demand is a lot higher than supply at the moment. And if you look at the top, so from January to October 2022, supply volumes are 9% down than they were in 2021, and about a quarter down on 2019, which is again quite significant, I would say. Demand again is falling, but it's less than supply. You can only rent what's available to rent, essentially. We do suspect that the underlying demand is still strong, so there are lots of people that still want to kind of rent properties. And again, January to October 2022, the volumes are down 5%, compared to 18% down on our last normal year, which is again 2019. So last month we did see a slight kind of uptick, but to be fair, I'm expecting that the stock issues are still kind of going to be around, and next year, as you'll see at the end of this kind of presentation, what we expect to happen is that it will continue to decrease. So let agreed prices. So essentially the let agreed prices, as you can see, have shot up quite massively. Again, with the sale prices, it's pretty similar. The average let agreed price have continued to rise in the medium term, and although they've been relatively flat for the last 4 months, the government legislations are kind of forcing people, as I said earlier, to kind of divest into properties now, and the average price is up by 6% in the last year and 20% since our last kind of normal year of 2019. So in terms of affordability, which is a massive issue with everything right now, it's about 50 quid to buy a pint at the World Cup. So here it's a case where if you take a person who's got an average salary of 33,000, it's about £2,000, just over £2,000 a month. But if you've got an average kind of let agreed property, which is about 1,300, you're spending around, if you've got an average household, around 60% of your income on just rent. And you've got your car and your food and your bills, and then if you want to socialise, how much have you actually got left to kind of live on, so to speak? If you can socialise, exactly. So as you can see, it's quite a scary time that we're in, I would say, in terms of the rental market and what people are supposed to do. Do you kind of hand in your tenancy and kind of move out to somewhere else, or do you try and buy a property where the price is super high and the interest rates are really high as well? For people who are on benefits, the average housing benefit for a household with around 2 bedrooms is only £160 a week. £160 a week, or £695 for the month, which again is only 53% of the average rent, which is again quite scary numbers for me. So time to let agreed at the moment. So if you look at the 2016 and 17, sort of between 25 and 27 days. That's now shot down to 13 days as it is currently. So in 2019, it was about 3 weeks for a property to go from let to let agreed. Now it's only 13 days. So by the time that someone hands in a notice, gives their 30 days, property goes on the market, from that time for when it's actually let agreed is only less than 2 weeks, which is very quick, which means that the available stock is just decreasing and decreasing. And we'll skip past this. So predictions, Matthew will take you through predictions in the sell side, and then again I'll touch on the rental side, and then we'll wrap up and take any questions that you guys want.
Hello again. Right, so as Marlon said, I'll be running through the sales predictions for us, which show up on the screen just now. So whilst we don't like to issue forecasts as a company, we're still going to give you an idea of what we think. So sale new instructions, we think are going to remain pretty sluggish and have a slight reduction of around 3%, and expecting around 1.5 million properties to hit that market. So for sales subject to contract properties, we expect this to fall around 18%, and numbers of the cost of living crisis is fueled by that war in Ukraine as well, and Brexit talks holds. So we're expecting around just over 1 million properties to actually sell and actually go through that process for us. The most important driver of those transactions is, of course, the revenue within that as well. And you'll be able to see the new instruction rates against the sold subject to contract figures there as well from 2016 to 2023 moving forward. So in-flight transactions, what do we mean by in-flight transactions? Basically going through that sales process for us. So when we've been in a brief period where the volume of properties for sales were at an all-time low, we're starting to see the short normal levels of 2019 come forward to us. And the volumes of the properties with in-flight transactions is currently 494,000 properties. Just there, and again, you can see on the chart just there as well where that crossover actually meets as well. Transactional volumes, so looking back, so from 2014 to 2019, on average, we've seen around 1.2 million transactions complete throughout the year. Again, on average, on a normal year. However, in 2020, these actually fell by 11% the prior year, and that's going to be down to the pandemic and the property market closing around 3-4 months there for us. And of course, the stamp duty holiday was announced and then began in 2020 of July 2020, and since then the market has bounced back quite significantly, as you can see in the steep increase on the chart just there as well. And I'm going to bring you back over to Marlon.
Last time we're going to do that, I promise.
Yeah, that's it. Double act is over.
So transactional volumes, just a kind of balanced view or imbalanced view on how it's kind of weighing up. So the positive outweigh the negatives, which is good. So unemployment is low at the moment, which is great. Stamp duty changes has obviously created a lot of somewhat excitement in the market where people can get in without kind of spending that money, stamp duty money on the property, and they can put it into the property as opposed to having to kind of use that as their budget. Typical mortgage interest rates were still lower than long term, so 2007, 2008, they were still quite high. So whilst we're looking at about 5, 6, 7% at the moment, they were still quite high kind of a few years ago. Longer mortgage rates are available now, so whereas the average was sort of 25 years, you are seeing 35 and 40 years now, which is obviously a benefit to home buyers. Equity is higher than the global financial crash, and repayment mortgages also are more common nowadays than they were before. Private rental sector, as we mentioned earlier on, are at an all-time high, circa around £1,200-1,300 a month, which makes buying a more affordable option because at the end of the day, your mortgage is, well, potentially likely to be a lot lower than £1,200 a month, hopefully, depending on the size of property that you go for. Transaction volumes in terms of a forecast. So we expect, again, we don't like to predict, but we do expect, based on our data, around about 1.3 million next year, which is about 11% fall on the stamp duty holiday fueled by last year. In 2023, transaction volumes are forecasted around about 1.1, so prudently based upon our low October 2022 demand. So at the end there, you see a bit of a dip, but obviously in comparative to the 2006 side of things, quite a low kind of volume that we're expecting next year. New instructions for lettings, so around about 1.5 million, which is a 5% fall on this year, which again is quite significant. Again, if you look at the kind of graph far right, I imagine it will continue to kind of decrease as the years go on. We hope not, though, of course. So in summary, around about circa 500,000 in-flight transactions at the moment. There will be around about 1.1 transaction we expect next year. I'll speak slower because I can see people taking pictures while I'm talking quite quick. Home movers will remain amongst the most valuable in the UK, so essentially we're kind of holding the economy up. As long as the transactions are still flowing, we should be able to hold the economy up. 2020 CR's home mover products, we think, will become even more relevant as the years go on, and we return to a more kind of normal, balanced sort of market as we were pre sort of 2020 when COVID hit. Owner-occupiers who delay a move or improve their existing properties, and again, our home improver products hopefully will be relevant number of sectors, including retail and lending. Thank you. We are on stand H1, which is opposite the entrance, but if you have any questions, happy to chat.
Okay, thank you guys, thank you very much. It's 20 CI's answer to Anton Deck, these guys, by the way. So
the better looking ones, hopefully.
Yeah, well, exactly, exactly. Yeah, so I'm sure there'll be some questions. So just who's going to be? If you'd like to ask a question, please wait until I give you the mic, because there's a lot of background noise here, and nobody's going to be able to hear what you're saying. So go on, who's going to be first? Who wants to be first? It's a great privilege to ask the first
If
question.
you're shy, just come to the stand and we'll have a chat with you. It's no problem.
Just while everybody gets the courage up to ask a question, can I just ask you, fellas? I mean, it's great to have all these statistics and everything, but a few people that I've been speaking to around the hall have been saying that actually the last couple of years has been pretty good. You know, everybody's had quite a good time, really. But they are a bit worried about what's coming. And I know you've just given us some statistics there, but I just wonder, you know, in your heart, do you think these people have got anything to worry about in the next 12 months or so? Or is it going to be business as usual? What do you think?
I suppose it depends. I suppose it really depends if you felt 2019, which was the normal year, was a bad year or not. I personally think we should be absolutely fine, to be honest with you. I don't think you're going to have...
The data's not shown anything different to 2019. So essentially, where we are now and where we're kind of peaking into 2023 is similar to what it was in 2019, before anyone realised that everything had gone to, you know, the S word.
Yeah.
So essentially, I don't expect you to have anything to worry about. And I actually think that come kind of Q1, Q2, you'll probably see a bit of an uplift in terms of job. If is the removals industry that you guys are in, I expect to see a slight uplift compared to what it was last year and the year before.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Well, let me ask, who was a bit worried about that before you came up here? Was anybody worried about next year? The gentleman at the back was. Yeah, maybe, well, you're being shy, I think. You were. Okay, well, I hope that's helped put your mind at rest just a little bit. Any questions before we move on?
You sure?
Okay, as Matthew said, then they're on the stand. If you want to go and talk to them, then please do.
Yeah, please do.
And
sure.
And we will be back here in about 20 minutes with our next presentation, which is all about self-storage. And if you've ever thought about opening a self-storage, or maybe you have one, this is maybe a little bit different. So do come back and see us in about 20 minutes. Meanwhile, please give a big round of applause to Matthew and Marlon. Thank you very much.
AKA Anton Deck.
Thank you.